I have come to see life, the best lived life is what that is intuitive and nonlinear. And if
Mm,
you take that intuitive course, you're going to have amazing adventures. And
yes.
somehow intuitive decisions work out. They just do.
Welcome to Creativity with Purpose, where we explore the stories, struggles, and sparks that shape our creative lives. I'm your host, Anne Marachek, author, healer, and believer in the power of meaningful expression. Together, we'll dive deep into what it means to create with heart, live with intention, and heal through the beauty of storytelling.
I'm Anne Marachek, and this is Creativity with Purpose. Our guest today is Pat Wetzel. She is a podcaster, writer, and general adventurer. She had to recreate her life several times after some pretty serious bumps in the road, ranging from the tumult of divorce to life threatening disease. She grew up in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. She attended the University of Pennsylvania and the Wharton School. After a career in finance, she got involved in flying high tech sailplanes, and she followed her passion moving from the East Coast to the West. Currently, she lives in Idaho. Her podcast, Bump in the Road, is among the top 50 podcasts on GoodPods. Hi, Pat. It's great
Hi,
to see
Anne.
you again. This is fun.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
So, I know you have really been through it. And with every what some people would call a trauma or a major setback, which I'm sure they were, you have risen to the task, if you will, of moving past that and not letting that trauma define you. And I think you show really such an amazing ability to creatively move forward with purpose and to reframe those negative, we would call situations, into a learning or a positive movement forward for your own life.
Thank you. Although I have to say, along the way, it's pretty messy.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at it.
Yes.
But I went through several distinct periods, and I'll share the stories briefly because
Yes. Thank
maybe they'll
you.
be helpful to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The first I would call a period of unlearning.
Mm.
I went from having these high-powered corporate jobs, amazing jobs, to being really quite disabled with an autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis. It impacts all your voluntary muscles, which are things like the ability to swallow, to see, to breathe, to
Oh
move your
my.
legs. Oh no, it's about a third of the people die, about a third of the people are severely disabled, and about a third muddle along. Well, not too long after that, my ex-husband runs off with his nurse. I'm in a place I don't want to be, I don't want to live, and I lost my in-laws as family and friends through this process, who I
Oh
really, really loved. So I was absolutely, totally on my own. And it was not a good place.
no.
So I stumbled upon flying sailplanes, high performance gliders. That's a story unto itself. But I went from this point of being very disabled, and part of the issue with it is the drugs you have to take, and you have
Mm.
to titrate them. You have several drugs, and you have to kind of titrate them to make sure you're working pretty well. But the problem is, if you have too little drugs or too many drugs, it gives you the same symptoms of weakness. So it's like a house of mirrors trying to figure out what to do with all this.
No.
Um, so anyway, I stumble on into soaring, and there's an easy medical I think I can get by to get a pilot's license. Everybody knows the doctor to call. He actually lived in the morgue, and you had to go down to the morgue to get your to get your physical. But I got through it. I got through it, and started flying. And so I went, and as I was flying, oh man, I shouldn't say this. As I was flying, I'm trying to titrate these drugs and everything. I'm thinking, I feel better with less. And I started slowly getting myself off of everything.
Hmm.
And if this is something I once told a pharmacist this, and she went white. She's like, you can't do that.
Ah.
But I did. And I ended up buying a plane that had a pedigree. It was built for a gentleman to fly in the worlds, and and I ended up with it. So I got really hooked on the sport, and I decided just I needed to change. I couldn't live with my past
Mhm.
hanging over me constantly, which was memories from everything on the East Coast. So I packed up with my sailplane and I went cross country. And I decided to move, and I moved out to Lake Tahoe because
Oh,
near
lovely.
Tahoe, yeah, is Minden, Nevada, which is one of the best places in the world to fly. So
Oh,
I would say that that period of my life was a period of enormous adventure, but unlearning, trying to unlearn um, so many of the things that led to what was really a very substantial trauma on many levels and a real loss of identity on many levels.
mhm.
So
So
the
many
next,
of us define ourselves by our work, by our jobs, and by our relationships. And all of a
absolutely,
sudden, you find both of those key pieces of your identity gone.
totally.
Yeah,
Who are
yeah,
you? What are you going to do? What about your health?
right, right.
It's a very scary place to be.
Mhm.
But once I got out west, I thought, okay, new place, new environment, great weather, good flying. Let's see where this leads. And I kind of categorized that middle section of my life, if you will, as adventure. But adventure had positive and negative components. The positive component certainly was flying. But flying, it isn't the sport per se, but it's the metaphor of it. I went from being so ill and disabled to soaring at 16, 17, 18,000 feet, roaring down mountain ridges at 200 miles an hour. You could fly over 30,000 feet on a good wave day easily.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
yeah, so you're talking about just like two such extremes in
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
And the flying gave me a very deep connection to and appreciation for nature and the power of nature.
Imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah. And living at Tahoe, certainly, it's so beautiful. The
Oh.
hiking, being on the lake, just everything. It's a very healing kind of place, actually.
Isn't that where they have the mica in the water and it sparkles?
There probably is Mike in the water. The
Oh,
lake is very deep. I think it may be the highest altitude freshwater lake in North America. I might be wrong if that might be the US, but it's absolutely magnificent and very clear. I mean, it's known
yes,
for its clarity.
yes. Yeah.
So
I've been there and I just remember sweeping my hand through the water
mhm.
and seeing these sparkles move from the mica that's dissolved in the water. It was just fascinating.
Oh, I can remember one day kayaking, and I had this bright yellow kayak, and I'm on top of this beautiful blue water.
Uh,
And the
oh,
sun is hitting it at just the right angle that you're in a sea of sparkles.
oh, I love that. Yes.
It was just so beautiful.
It's the Mother Earth and her magic, right?
I'm a big fan of Mother Earth and her magic. I have been so privileged to see and experience so many amazing things and places. And I think that that connection is a big part of what defines me over time.
Mhm. Exactly. So you chose to not let those East Coast traumatic experiences define you. You went out and found your new self, your new reality.
Yes and no. Some of it lingered for a very long time. Moving from the East Coast to the West Coast is like moving to a different country.
Oh, I bet.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was just everything was different. People met each other on the East Coast. People say, "Where'd you go to school?" That's one of the first questions.
Uh,
Out West, people don't look at life in that hierarchical of fashion. People are much friendlier on the West Coast than they are on the East Coast. Uh, it's just a totally different country, and that was very hard to adjust to. Um, so, I mean, there were pluses and minuses, and one of the minuses of this adventure component in my life that led to the next phase really was a cancer diagnosis. And I look back to all the stress I'd been through, and it's no great surprise, really, that something like this came up. Um, but I was told I had incurable lymphoma,
hmm.
and I had to just hope they came up with a new treatment by the time the last treatment failed.
Oh my heavens.
Yeah.
What a diagnosis. You and I both have received, I've multiple times, diagnoses that were terminal.
Hmm.
And I just said no, thank you. Just because you don't know the answer doesn't mean there isn't one. And I went on my own healing journey to find that. And obviously I'm still here and thriving. So the my advice to myself was don't accept that. Right?
No, and I think look within. What is it that needs to be healed? What do you need
Yeah.
to figure out? For me, travel's always my answer. So, after 6 years of this business where I would get a treatment, I would hold my breath, it would fail. I'd get a treatment, I'd hold my breath, it would fail. I just decided and it looked like I was looking at another round of treatment, the 4th round,
Uh,
and I'm just like, I'm not doing this anymore." I sold my house, put everything in storage, and just hit the road, and it's the best thing I ever did. I started writing, which is something I always thought I would do. I started a travel blog that won awards. I won awards for photography, and that eventually led actually to a film project that was oriented towards the cancer community.
oh,
And I had looked at it and I thought, I'm so lucky that I can go and travel like this. I find it so healing. Wouldn't it
mhm,
be nice to be able to give that to others? So I
sure.
lined up some potential corporate sponsors. And the first trip was to Tanzania because we could get 3 really good episodes out of that. We could do Kilimanjaro and the metaphor of a mountain.
Yeah.
We could do Serengeti and the metaphor of survival. And then we could do Zanzibar and the spice of life and how food and that enjoyment really impacts your health.
Yeah.
But it was 2020 and travel shut down.
No.
And at this point, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Right, exactly.
How am I supposed to? I've dealt with everything so far. How am I supposed to deal with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I literally sat in bed under a down comforter and ate potato chips for 2 weeks.
Mine would have been ice cream, but yes.
Okay. Really salty ones.
Yeah.
And finally, the idea of doing a podcast came to me. I mean, I thought about a podcast with the film project
Right.
as we traveled, but that was not going to be.
Mhm.
Um, And I had never done a podcast. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about the equipment. I didn't know if I could get any guests on it. And then I thought, I need a theme. And Bump in the Road came to me. It was so apropos.
Perfect. Yes, exactly.
So I have been doing Bump for 4 years now.
Really? How fabulous.
Yeah. And as a
You had
result,
such wonderful success with it.
it's chop wood, carry water. You do all the little things that you have to do. But I have met the most amazing people all over the world as a
Yes,
result of doing this.
yes. And one of the things I told the universe that I wanted was an ever expanding connection, a web of
Mhm.
like minded souls and people that I can enjoy and connect with.
Yeah.
And that has been answered and is continuing to be answered in abundance. It's just wonderful. And I think part of it is that willingness to give, because when you open your hands to give, that's the only way you can then receive.
Absolutely, and I think that, the web gives us that opportunity to
Yeah,
connect with people we never would have connected with.
exactly. Exactly. And it's marvelous, isn't it?
I love it. I love my guests. I have learned from absolutely everybody that has
Yeah.
been on my podcast.
Oh, yeah. And we all have such unique stories that really deserve to be heard. They really do. They need to have a voice because there's so many people I think that feel isolated. They feel like they're alone in their situation.
Yeah.
They perhaps don't see a way forward, and that's where the creativity with purpose resonates to me because everyone I've talked to has, instead of saying, "Okay, I give in, I give up, I'm just going to accept that diagnosis," or this traumatic experience is going to define me, they've all used the creativity of their spirit and their inner drive to move
Mhm.
forward and find a purpose. And it has reshaped and propelled them forward into amazing things they never knew were possible or available to them.
Yeah, I think hitting a serious bump, a serious traumatic event can really be a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, it's not easy. It is, and when you're in the middle of it, there looks like there is no other side. but
Yes.
there is.
Mhm.
And the gift of it is you do have an opportunity to choose what you take forward.
You really do. You really do. And even when I was unpacking my parents' home, when I wrote Unpacking the Attic, I could have chosen to get more and more angry, more and more bitter and resentful as I remembered these traumatic experiences.
Mhm.
But that was not the path that I went down. The path that I chose to walk down was a path of healing and forgiveness.
You have
And
to give.
I had to make that choice though, and I had to do the hard work. And I had to do a lot of self examining
Mhm.
because so many of the situations I was looking at, of course, from a child's perspective with a lack of context,
Yeah.
right? With a lack of any kind of adult understanding of the complexities of the problems the adults were experiencing around me because I couldn't have possibly. I was a toddler,
Mm.
I was a little kid. So doing the hard work, looking back and saying, maybe I was wrong. Maybe these situations really were not directed at me. Maybe I interpreted them as I am suffering because I'm rejected or I'm abandoned. I was humiliated. The common threads that we all tend to
Yeah.
experience. But perhaps by giving a compassion and a forgiveness to the adults that were in those scenarios, I found that forgiveness and that reframing freed me of that internal anger and resentment I've been holding on to, and
Absolutely.
opened a path for me to move forward more joyous, more fulfilled, and to learn from and to experience, I guess, a healing and a complete reframing of the context in my mind of my own self image.
One of the exercises I think that is valuable is take your trauma, whatever it is, and particularly if it's an adult trauma, and write the story three different ways.
Oh,
Write it from a perspective of anger, write it from a perspective of love, write it from a perspective of whatever. And when you start doing that, and actually sit down and write it,
yeah,
and when you start doing that, you realize they're all true, none of them are true.
yes, yes,
And you really need to let go of whatever that piece is you're holding on to because it's not going to serve you moving forward.
it doesn't. It truly doesn't. And one of the stories in the book, I wrote a letter to my paternal grandfather years after he had passed on. And yet it was a forgiveness letter where I forgave him from the rejection that I experienced and the abandonment I experienced from him as a child, and burnt the letter. And as the smoke rose, I got this complete downwashing of goosebumps and love and compassion, not only for him, but from him.
Hmm.
Now, did he read that letter in the spirit world? Who knows, right? But just the experience for me of writing it out and then releasing it in that fashion really transformed my perspective.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that it's all about energy. And we store these experiences as energy in our body and in our psyche.
Yes,
And if it's not good energy, we need to find a way to release it.
I agree.
And
Don't you
until,
think that those negative energies also impact our physical health?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, going through the cancer and everything for me, one of the things that became a really primary concern was my mental health
Yes. Yeah.
because I'm caught up in this cycle of you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. Let's do another round of chemo. It's like, oh my God. Um, so getting a handle on having a clear mind and a peaceful mind was so important. And that's when I started my meditation practice. I've been meditating about 15 years now. Um, I feel that my mental health, and I would include in that my spiritual health,
Yes.
is everything to me.
Yes. And for me, everything starts with spirit. And so finding that place of spiritual health and renewal for me was key.
Mhm.
And I cannot even in any reality imagine myself going at 200 miles an hour in a sailplane. that just
Cool.
that just strikes terror and bewilderment in my
You had to
imagination.
tuck in really close to the mountainside.
I do not imagine. That's probably not in the cards for me, but you're a braver lady than I. But I will say that nature is where I found everything. My gardening, my hikes in the mountains. I go every year to Estes Park, Colorado. We hike the
Yeah.
Rockies. I have certain places that I have go-to spots, but they're all involving nature, lakes, rivers, flowing water, the trees. I call it, earthing or grounding, being barefoot. All of these things are where I find my battery, if you will, the way where I regenerate and renew and find my purpose again.
Yeah, I tend to find my spots too. I want to go back to one thing you said about me
Mhm.
being brave. I would actually argue that I was fearless
Yes.
because I'd almost hit a point of I just don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a normal amount of fear. But that's actually a really interesting place to
Is
be
an
fearless.
interesting place. Yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
can happen
Yeah.
if you let go of your fear?
Amazing. Yeah. I'm not there. Soaring down a mountain just doesn't, I just can't even imagine.
You don't have to. We all face whatever we face in different ways.
That's right. That's just amazing to me.
It's so beautiful. I mean, one day I was flying over Tahoe, and down below is this beautiful blue and green, aquamarine kind of colored lake. And there was still some snow on the mountains. And I'm
Ah,
up around 16, 17,000 feet, and I catch a great thermal. And I bank left, and there's a little winglet about this big on the edge of the wing. And I balanced that winglet on a bubble of air and just rose through the sky,
amazing.
through the canopy, this beautiful water and terrain below. And for some period of time, I don't know how long it was as if I had stepped beyond the bounds of time and this universe into something utterly eternal. It
Hmm.
was just magical. And it was beyond flow. I've experienced flow lots of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
This was just like stepping into another dimension.
Wow.
And I think that that type of oneness is most possible in nature.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah. I had an interesting experience just on my back porch. We have great horned owls that live
Mhm.
in the vicinity of our home. And every once in a while you can hear them out there hooting. Well, this one night I went out and I hooted back. I don't know, I just did, right?
Mhm.
And pretty soon I'm having this conversation. We're hooting back and forth, right? And then I get another owl hooting and I can hear him getting closer and closer, and then another, and then another. And pretty soon I was conversing with five or six great horned owls.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly I felt connected. And it was like an energetic connection to time, space, these other spirits, these other beings, nature herself. And it was a really almost like I floated kind of a feeling. And it's pitch dark, and I'm just communicating. And they got closer and closer and closer. And then all of a sudden I thought, you know what? Maybe I should go inside. I suddenly thought maybe this is getting to be a little too close. But it was there was a moment there where I think I understand what you're saying, where it seemed to step out of linear reality
Yeah,
almost into another energetic space.
very much. And
Yeah.
the key is, I think, that that space always exists.
Yeah.
How do you step into it? And how do we let go of these linear perspectives that we have that are only limiting?
Yes. Right. And, I know that owls tend to be very territorial, and yet I had multiple great horned owls getting closer and closer and closer to me, and it was magical. And the magic, I think, is all like you said, always there.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I experience that through the music as well. When I am composing, I'm 99% of the time I'm channeling the music.
Hmm.
I don't think it comes from me. I think it comes through me.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. There are
Yeah.
times when I
Yeah.
find words and things that I'm not sure that they're mine. The idea of Bump in the Road as a title was not mine. It came through me, if you will.
Yes.
Um, I can remember going to land one day and the wind was coming from the east, which never happens. I mean, it
Oh,
just doesn't. The wind on the west coast comes from the west, right?
yes.
And
Yes.
and certainly you can have you can have irregular winds with low pressure systems and things like that. But this just made no sense to me, and I was really slow to pick up on it because it was such an aberration. I swear I had a wonderful landing, but I swear I did not land the plane that day.
Oh, yeah. You think the wind landed it for you?
No, I think something else landed it for me.
Oh, interesting. Like you got help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. It's interesting you say that about your title Bump in the Road. The exact same thing happened to me with Unpacking the Attic.
Hmm.
I had done a healing journal. I'd written these memories down for myself during the actual process of emptying my parents' home as they transitioned to assisted living. And I put it in a file cabinet and it sat there forgotten for 8 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And in the interim, my father passed away. And I was 3 a.m. I felt like I had been literally shaken awake, like physically shaken awake. And I hear in my mind, the title of your book is Unpacking the Attic. Just as plain as someone was standing in front of me talking to me. And I'm like, thank you? What book? Completely forgotten about it. And I got this image, the file cabinet, the journal. I'm like, that's not a book. And they're like, it's time. And
Well,
the
and you
next
could not.
morning, yeah, the next morning I woke up and there was a letter in my inbox for my email from the Steve Harrison Publishing Group. Never heard of them, never reached out to them. So where did that come from, right?
There's a lot of
Yeah,
synchronicities that if you look for them are there in life.
yeah,
And I think you need to learn to start looking for them and paying
yeah.
attention because they will, at this point, we're both the same age.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
So I look at life and we're both, shall we say, well over 50,
yes, yes,
over 60 even.
yes, well over. Yes.
But I came out of a very linear background, finance, Wharton, all that kind of stuff. I have come to see life, the best lived life is what that is intuitive and nonlinear. And if
Mm,
you take that intuitive course, you're going to have amazing adventures. And
yes,
somehow intuitive decisions work out. They just do.
they just do. You're right. And um, someone that I I enjoy following. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bashar. Uh,
Yes. Hmm.
yes, I enjoy listening to his channeling, and I guess I relate to that too because I channel music. But he says follow your passion and take it to its furthest logical point or conclusion. And then when that no longer interests you, then pick up and follow the next thing, follow the next
Yeah.
passion. And I've been doing that, and it is so thrilling and it is so amazing. It is leading me down roads that I never knew even existed, let alone would be possible for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm stunned at this age that I'm worried about SEO optimization on YouTube.
Yes, yes.
Who would have thought of this?
I know, who would have thought, right? And it is that excitement of never stop recreating yourself, never stop learning, never stop growing. always looking for another creative way to find your purpose and to express it. Yes. Like we just bought tickets to, this is amazing to me. We're going to Hollywood. I've been one of four finalists that are nominees for Author of the Year for Best Memoir,
Oh,
which
wow.
which just I didn't even know that award existed. I get this email. Congratulations. So we're going to Hollywood, and it's one of those things where you find out while they're on stage if you won, the nominees for, right? And then
Mhm.
they get the envelope and they open up, and the winner is, in Hollywood in the same theater where they do the Oscars and all of these good things. And I'm thinking, I've got a girlfriend going with me to buy gowns, so I have something to wear, right? And I thought at my age, who would have ever dreamed in a bazillion years that I would be nominated for something like Author of the Year, worrying about buying a gown with sequins, walking on a red carpet? I mean,
Yeah, but
you know,
you bring up something really important, and that is age is irrelevant. If
it
anything,
is.
you need
I'm
to regress
finding
as you
that
get
out.
older.
It is irrelevant. And I'm having a ball. I'm having as much fun as probably more fun than I did in college. This is great. And then yesterday we get this email from the Kanapali Beach Hotel and giving us a huge discount on flights and bookings to go to Hawaii. And we thought, you know what? Let's just do it. So my husband and I are both feeling like kids again because we're embracing these serendipitous adventures
Mhm.
and these opportunities. And so, do I feel a little reckless? Yeah. Is it fun? It's marvelous. But what I'll be doing is the other thing you talk about learning new skills. I'm learning to fly a photography drone.
Oh,
So
they're fun.
it's going to be great. So that's my way I'm going to soar, right? Feet
Uh-huh.
on the ground, but I'll be watching it.
No, drones are a lot of fun, and they're really interesting. They let you see things from a different perspective.
Exactly. And so we're going to be drone filming Hawaii so that I can then come home and use that for inspiration to compose new music to accompany it.
One of the things the drone you can program the drone to do is to just circle around a fixed point,
Yes.
and you can have it circle around you, which would be so cool.
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So, all these new adventures. And every time I get a new toy like the drone or something, it really does give creativity to purpose. Um, because now I've been filming and I've been composing music for these different travel adventures that we've been on. But just having that higher perspective with the drone and that
Mhm.
feeling of flying, think of how that's going to influence the flow of the music.
Oh, it'll have a huge influence. And,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, I think being curious, being willing to step outside your comfort zone and take some risks, there's no failure, there's just experience.
Yes. And isn't that ultimately what we're all here for? I feel we are all spirits having a physical experience.
And we're supposed to learn from these
Yes.
experiences and test their bounds. I mean, I did I'll call it a podcast. It was a discussion once on duality. And I had a very interesting group of people in on this discussion. But we talked about the human experience, which is one of duality, versus the spiritual experience, which is oneness.
Yes. Right.
And I think that in this human life, we are here to experience that duality. And I think the larger a range of experiences you have, hot, cold, light, dark, however you want to phrase it, the larger the range of experiences, the more wisdom you take from it.
Yes, I agree. And had I not had my neck broken at 16 and had that paraplegic diagnosis, um, I would be a completely different person than I am now. I would not have been looking within. I would not have been on the spiritual journey or the willingness to do the work to look within.
Yeah, that's something that came to me through a pretty extensive midsection of my life, but certainly cancer was the biggest piece that really forced me to find stillness, find peace, look within, um, and to just stop time, to be present, to be truly present. And that is such an incredible gift. And we all get busy and we forget to put our attention on the now. But the now, this moment, is where creativity exists. It doesn't exist in the past or the future. It's right here now. So what
Exactly.
you do now influences the next now and the next. And, it goes back to the Buddhist philosophy of once enlightened, chop wood, carry water. Show up, be here now. That's where the magic lives.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know Dominique, one of the authors in our group. And did you know that he is actually a priest, a, a, a
Oh,
Taoist?
yeah, yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, he's ordained. And I'm going to be interviewing him soon. And I find his outlook is very similar to that. It's aligned in be completely present.
Hmm.
And I've taken some of his acting courses, and he was saying that the best actor is invisible, so that the audience experiences what the actor's experiencing as if it was them,
Yeah.
and they lose track of who the actor is, and they just go straight into the experience. They share in the experiential.
It's that
And
emotional resonance, and that is what makes,
yeah,
whether it's theater or stories, it's what makes stories so important because we have a visceral, emotional, energetic connection to the story. And that type of connection can change you.
yes, it really
Yeah.
does. It really does. Interesting. I just watched last night one of the Bashar channels. He
Mhm.
was talking about that exact thing, the hero's journey,
Yeah.
and how we all have within us internally built in a resonance that relates to that storyline. And when we tell ourselves the story of our own lives, we need to be very cognizant of that hero's journey within us
I think
and how we
everyone is on a
resonate.
hero. No, everyone's on a hero's journey. And it's a matter of stepping back and seeing the wonder of yourself in your own story.
Yes, exactly. And when you allow yourself to do that, you, I think, experience each of these serendipitous opportunities with the willingness to say yes.
Hmm.
Because always before I was raised in a very shut down set of parents. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You mustn't do that. Don't do that. All of those messages constantly. I was very psychic child, and I embarrassed my parents, and I think they were afraid of that as well, and they constantly tried to shut me down.
Hmm.
And I've been on a process of reopening all of those channels, and that willingness to step into that and to say yes, and express your true self and your authenticity. That's very freeing. It's very enlightening.
It is, and it's interesting. Just Say Yes is one of the themes that comes out again, with Bump in the Road, that people are willing to just say yes to something they maybe wouldn't have said yes to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And be willing to have these experiences in life.
You know, I am happiest outside my comfort zone. Please, now that I've said that, don't give me too
Be
much.
careful what you ask
Don't
for.
give me too much of an experience. But what I do enjoy is that sense of possibility that exists outside the mundane. And I'd rather live in the possibility with all of its pitfalls and everything than be mired in the mundane.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with that. Um, that's one of the reasons I think travel is so appealing to both of us.
Well, and you know what it is about travel, I think? Travel forces you to be more present because it's a different environment. And I think it's that experience of presence that makes travel really remarkable.
Yeah. And the the fun and the opportunity to connect with people with different perspectives,
Yep.
completely different worldview and experience. And yet I think the more I travel, the more I realize we're all the same.
Oh, yeah. We are. It's one of the things I see in travel, out of the podcast. We all have the same emotions.
Yeah.
And that's what really, those emotional experiences are what really define us. And so if you've had an experience of, say, isolation, you
Yes.
can relate to anyone else through that experience because most people at some point or another have had some degree of isolation or lack of connection in their
Exactly.
lives.
Exactly.
And you can go through any list of emotions and you can connect with people in that manner.
You
And
really
that's really
can.
remarkable.
Yeah, you really can. And that's one of the things that I really focused on in writing Unpacking the Attic was I find there are universally experienced traumas in childhood.
Mhm.
We all at some point feel rejection, we feel abandonment, humiliation, injustice, betrayal. These are all things that we experience, and that even though the details of the event are going to be different for each of
Mhm.
us, the underlying motion is the thing that we all connect to and relate to.
Yes.
And seeing that we can go back and rewrite those narratives for ourselves as adults and let go of those negative self imagery that we were given as children, we can choose to rewrite those and to not accept those and to not make those foundational to who we are now.
Absolutely. Though I have to say, I look at some things, some of those childhood traumas, and I do look back and say, what if I
Mhm.
hadn't carried that with me?
Yeah.
How different things might have been.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
that also allows you to start unearthing who you really are because who you might have been is still who you are.
Who you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've chosen to embrace the channeling and the more psychic side of myself, and it's just a heck of a lot of fun.
It's a gift.
It has really been an experience, and I've mentioned this before, but when I first started channeling the music, I would cry and shake, and I felt like my whole nervous system had been overwhelmed, like I'd put my finger in a light socket. Drinking from a fire hose is how I described it. It was just coming in so fast and so hard that I would get literally physically overwhelmed.
Mhm.
Um, Tears, shaking, difficult breathing. And I've learned now, because I've done it so many hundreds of times now, to control the speed of the download so
Mhm.
that there are many different places you can put that spigot. It doesn't have to be just all open all at once, right? I was just flipping it open before. So now I can go a little bit. Okay, take a little bit more. Okay, that's good. Adjust the rate at which this comes through. And I'm finding that there's a lot of things that you can, with practice,
Mhm.
you can learn to experience a lot of these fascinating, amazing spiritual gifts that we all have innately within us. And yet we don't need to let ourselves be overwhelmed by it either.
No, that's fascinating. And I do think we all have these gifts. I think some of us, like you, are more attuned to them.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and when I was little, I used to get in trouble because if you remember back then, televisions had tubes,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? And
And there were
I,
3 channels.
and if I saw something on the TV that emotionally upset me, I would blow out the tubes in the TV.
Really?
Yeah. I was always getting in trouble to where my mother finally said, "You can't watch TV. You're too expensive."
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I would literally fry, I would melt the tubes in the television and they'd have to go buy new tubes. I was always getting, punished for it. And I didn't know how I was doing it, but somehow I was projecting that intensity of emotion into the tubes and I was frying the circuit. So, I used to not be able to wear a watch because I would make the hand spin.
Mhm.
I can now. I again learning to control it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there was a lot of things that when I was little, I used to be able to touch an object and suddenly be transported to an experience someone else had associated with that object.
Wow.
Yeah, I got in really big trouble doing that one night with my dad's old army blanket. I was cold and he put it over me and I put my hands on it and I was suddenly him in a train in Korea in the middle of the night.
Oh my gosh. That had to be a little terrifying.
Um, it was, and it wasn't because in his experience, he wasn't frightened and I was living his experience. But obviously, he had experiences in Korea I didn't need to be living as a child.
Yeah.
So the blanket got whisked away immediately. But that was just one example of things like that. But um, I'm finding now that it's possible to embrace all of those abilities and yet still not let it overwhelm. So there, with practice, like with anything else, like learning to play the piano takes practice, right?
Mhm.
So with anything else, we can embrace these different abilities and these different creative outlets for ourselves and experience this life in multiple different perspectives and ways. And opening our eyes to those different perspectives and those different energies, I think, is very instructive and it's a lot of fun.
And I would say it's all about energy. At least that is
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
lessons I take away from life to date. And, many years ago, I read Gary Zukav's book, The Seat of the Soul. And one of the things he talked about was that any interaction you have with somebody is really an energy exchange. And it's so true. It is
Oh,
so true. And
yeah.
you can play with that concept if you want and put out a positive energy, a not so positive one, or whatever, and you can just watch this almost this wave of behavior come and go. It's fascinating.
Oh, and all of us has experienced when someone walks in a room, we're either immediately attracted to them or we
Yes.
back off. Just we can feel their energy.
Yes,
Yeah, we really
definitely.
can. We can feel their energy. I know people that I have just not called back
Mhm.
because I found them to be energy vampires. If is what I
Oh,
call
I don't
it.
I just cut ties with those people right
Yeah,
away.
I've had to do that, and I'm so sensitive anyway. But there's people that on the surface, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. But when I leave their presence, I feel like I have been in this negative space where they have just sucked the energy out of me. And I feel depleted and depressed
Yes.
and tired after I've been in their presence. And I thought, I don't need this.
I'm thinking of one
I,
person in particular
yeah,
who always left me feeling that way, and I absolutely cut her out of my life. I couldn't take it anymore, and her view of life was so rigid, and you had to, if you didn't adhere to her view and her sequence of things, she couldn't step beyond that,
yeah,
and it was just, it was a drain. It was an
yeah.
absolute drain.
My father was similar in a way that no one had an opinion. You either agreed with him or you were wrong. And there was never a conversation. It was, you know, and he was narcissistic, very much so. And if you didn't feed his ego, and if you didn't tell him how perfect he was in every opinion and in everything, you were either, and me as a child, punished or just ridiculed. And he would not, you could not have a conversation with the man. You either had to agree with him
Narcissists
100% or just say, you know what, that's you just go do your thing. I'll do mine, and yeah, we're going to part ways here. And
narcissists are sadly heartless.
he was, he
Yeah,
was, yeah,
and
it
they
was
don't even
brutal.
realize it.
Oh yeah, he thought he was raising me in the best possible way because he was right. So, and very rigid, very,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thinking of various narcissists have wandered through my life, yes.
And as a child, and this is a parent, you don't even know that thing that exists. You have no label for it. You
No.
have no coping mechanism, no way of dealing with it. And so it takes that willingness to do the work and to look back as an adult and to separate yourself from those childhood traumas and those emotional responses so that you're no longer triggering.
Yeah, and the problem is nobody really tells us this, that there are certain real truths to navigating life's bumps.
There are.
I mean, there absolutely are. And yet we fail to pass on this very significant piece of wisdom
Yeah,
generation after generation. And that's part of my motivation with Bump is that
absolutely.
there are these truisms. And if you can hear your story and somebody else's story, it can change your life.
Yes, it can. It truly can. And there's a part of life where we need to step back and open our eyes and really look and open our spirit and be willing to move forward through that. I think we get in such a linear, caught up societal norms of defining very narrowly success and defining very narrowly wealth. A
Hmm.
walk in the forest gives you great wealth.
Absolutely. Our society is way off, is over, has gone off the cliff in terms
Yeah,
of what they value, I think.
yeah.
I think one of the most significant things that anybody's ever said on my podcast, there are many things, but one that has always stuck with me was Mary Neal, a spine surgeon who had a near-death experience.
Mm.
And she said, and she was a nominal Christian before that, not really into any sort of religious belief per se. She said she went from hope to trust.
Yes,
What a
yes,
paradigm shift. If we lived out of trust, think how different, think about the possibilities in life.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's part of the journey that I'm on right now is just I have learned to trust the universe.
Hmm.
Okay, you call it what you want, universal mind, God, um,
Hmm. Source.
source, great creator. And when I said this out loud many times and it's coming to fruition, I said, if you talking to the universe, to God, if you send me the opportunity, I will say yes. And I will do everything in my power to follow my passion to see that to its fullest creative potential. And my life has just blown apart. It's wide open now. I've got so many new wonderful people I've met. I have so much travel. I have so many new, fantastically creative and positive new friends in my life, which is one of the specific things I asked for. And it's all flooding in and it's all beautiful. And it is an opportunity for me at any age, right? To continue to reinvent myself and to learn new skills and to move forward and to grow and to express myself through this creative flow. And because I'm so sensitive, I find it very easy for me to dip into a depression.
Hmm.
And my cure for that is not to think, oh, I need to be happy. My cure for that is expression. I need to go create. And as soon as I start a creative flow, a creative
Hmm.
project, I sit down and write a chapter. I sit down and channel some music. I create a new recipe and feed my family a new blueberry cheesecake I concocted. Any kind of creative endeavor immediately pulls me back away from this depressed state into this feeling of joy and abundance. And it doesn't have to be anything big, right?
No,
It can go in the yard and garden and weed and make up a song and sing to the butterflies. I mean, whatever, right? But being in nature and being in a creative flow for me is the most positive place I can be.
I totally agree.
Mhm. Exactly. So let me ask you one of the things I enjoy asking, and it's what do you consider a fulfilled life?
A life of joy.
Excellent. Excellent. And how we define joy.
Joy is something that emanates from within. It's not external. It's
Great.
deep, it's rich, it's multifaceted, it's timeless.
There you
And
go.
when you can learn to find joy, Everything transforms.
It does. It truly does, doesn't it? Yeah. And for me, being present is always where joy lives.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't
Every
remember it doesn't do it. Projecting and hoping for it doesn't do it. Being here in the now in the present. Yeah.
that is the secret to all life, being here now, in the present. And that's something that we need to cultivate. I mean, I cultivate it partly through a meditation practice, and it's the antithesis of the way our society operates these days. And we're missing the point about just being simply present.
Yeah. I agree. Well, this was lovely. And I think that's a beautiful place to leave our conversation. And I will look forward to having you back.
We'll have to do this again. You have to come on my podcast
There
too.
you go.
No, really, we will. I'm going to have to run because I have I have a podcast that I'm taping in just a second. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. This was great. We'll have to do so. I have a number of things on the burner. I'll talk to you another time about them. We should do some conversations and things.
Yeah, and I think the two of us are so well aligned that a collaboration on some sort of creative endeavor would be just a delight for both of us.
Oh, it could be a bunch of fun. I
Yeah.
absolutely love. Forgive me, I'm getting dressed for my next
Oh, sure. Yeah.
interaction.
Go for it. Go for it. You have to.
And I have to roll because I have one
That
minute.
looks
But
cute.
I'll be in touch and let's chat some more, okay?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you.